Well, I forgot again. Every year I want to tell them to play Come Fly with me when I walk in. Anyway, good afternoon, and thank you for coming to the 5th Annual Airlines for America Commercial Aviation Industry Summit. I want to thank all of you again for coming. I want to thank our partner, CQ Roll Call. I almost said GQ. CQ Roll Call. Before we start, I think we ought to take just a minute to think about all of the people who've been impacted by hurricanes Harvey and Irma. Their losses and their suffering are devastating, and our thoughts and prayers are with them. At the same time, these disasters always seem to serve as a reminder of Americans' resiliency, compassion, and generosity. For this industry, it brings to the fore the manner in which we bring people, communities, and products together. The industry responded here, and responded very positively. Carriers continued to operate as long as possible to get as many people possible out of harm's way. They added flights. They also ferried government personnel and product into the disaster areas ahead of time, as they are now. They even took care of pets in many cases. Some capped their fares to make it possible for more people to get out. So it made a difference, and now they're working to effect a full return to service. That said, let me now move on to talk about some issues briefly, and I am going to be brief because we talk about the same issues all the time. Last year on this stage, Doug Parker joked, although it wasn't really a joke, that he felt like he was giving the same speech as the year before. I remember when I took the job, I told the board that we were going to be saying some of the same things over and over again. It would be like a political campaign. If you've ever worked one, you wonder how the candidates can do it day after day after day, saying the same thing like it's new. Well, that's important in this industry because the more things change, the more they stay the same because we say the same things over and over again, and somehow the education level of certain policymakers seems to be very small. And yes, I will be candid about that. What's changed? 6 years of sustained profitability, carriers investing approximately $1.5 billion a month over the last year in aircraft, product, customer service, and their people in terms of compensation and in hiring people back. Employment in the industry is up 12% over 6.5 years ago, and the average wage is 38% higher than that in other industries. That's all good news. What hasn't changed, on the good side, fares continue to drop. They're down 10% over the last 3 years, including ancillary fees. They're down 16% since the year 2000 and 41% since 1980. So what does that mean? It means that more people get to fly, more people get to go where they want to go for business and for leisure and with their families. What's striking, we fly 2.4 million people every single day. 1/3 of those flyers have annual incomes under $50,000. This is a starkly different time to fly than it was when I was growing up, where nobody, and many of you have heard me say this before, nobody in my neighborhood in suburban Cleveland flew. Nobody could afford to. It's different now. So what hasn't changed on the bad side? Many members of Congress have little to no grasp on the facts or economics of the industry. They love to beat the industry up, but they're not really constructive, and they're trying to re-regulate the industry. You know, there have certainly been some high-profile failures in service. By the same token, if you look at statistics, by every metric, we're at all-time highs. If you look at independent customer surveys, all-time high in satisfaction. That's important. So where does the rubber meet the road here? Well, the rubber meets the road when customers and people who are shipping goods and ordering goods know what they want and they know what they'll pay for it. They're voting with their wallets. Yet there are efforts in Congress to re-regulate the industry, some in very striking ways, and to tax the industry more. You know, it's been years, every year in recent memory, the White House budget has had an increase in the passenger facility charge in it. Congress has refused to consider it for all those years. Now, this time, it's not in the budget, and there's a move to increase the passenger facility charge, an effort led by 3 Republican senators, you know, very quietly. There's also an effort to recreate the Civil Aeronautics Board, where there's an amendment to the FAA reauthorization bill in the Senate that would require DOT to set prices and fares and determine what's reasonable and appropriate, if you can imagine. We would be treated like any other business, we'd be treated differently than any other business. Back in the old days, what's interesting is Ted Kennedy led the charge in the late 1970s to do away with that kind of pricing. And now we've got a group of senators, led by one from Massachusetts, one Connecticut, and one from Mississippi, to re-regulate pricing. To me, it's an absurdity, to be perfectly candid. Anyway, finally, what hasn't changed on the bad side, I'm just going to say it, air traffic control modernization. We remain in a rut. It remains something that needs to be done. We'd be falling behind the rest of the world. You're going to hear a lot more about the rest of these issues, the rest of the day. The one thing I would say is next year, we'll be back here. We will have a more positive message and a more good news about how the industry is doing, because the industry is on its feet and operating very, very well and serving its customers very well. So, that said, I now have the great pleasure to introduce DJ Gribben. We are pleased to have him here and appreciate his time. DJ happens to be an old friend of mine. He's got a very, very good resume. He's one of the smartest people I've ever known. He is a special assistant to the president for infrastructure policy and has been instrumental in the progress we've made in terms of getting ATC modernization. He previously headed government advisory for Macquarie Capital, a role in which he led advisory teams structuring public-private partnerships, transactions for governmental clients. He also worked for Koch Industries and HDR, helping clients develop innovative ways to deliver infrastructure. DJ has served as chief counsel for the Federal Highway Administration and general counsel for the U.S. Department of Transportation. He knows his stuff. I'll save you where he went to college and law school and all that, and the fact that he actually holds brokerage licenses. But again, we all owe him a debt of gratitude, and very pleased to welcome DJ Gribben. Thank you.